Happy Saturday. Welcome back to the Hope Garden and Creations. So today we're in the kitchen and it's Saturday, and I've been promising my son and my husband that I was going to make chicken soup. So today we're going to make Caribbean chicken soup, and just like I mentioned in my curry chicken video, there are different variations of how you make your dishes. So this is my variation of Caribbean chicken soup. So what I started with was chicken back. I had some turkey neck and I had some other cut up pieces of chicken on the bone. What I did was season it with salt and pepper and garlic, and I roasted it in the oven for 30 minutes at 400 degrees. Once that was done, I added it to my boiling pot of water with some carrots, garlic, onion, celery. I believe that's it. Oh, and we added some apple cider vinegar, because the apple cider vinegar is what helps to draw out the minerals of the bones. So that's been cooking for almost 3 hours now, and I will add those clips in after this so you can see where we started at, and then I'll come back with the next step. So this is kind of like a quick method of bone broth. Usually when I cook my bone broth, I throw everything in a crock pot and I let it cook for 24 hours. But since I was making the chicken soup, I decided, well, I would do kind of a quick way of making bone broth. So of course it may not have as much of the nutrients from the bones, but since I was using chicken back, those bones don't take that long to break down if I was using like beef bones or like oxtails or anything like that. So I think 3 hours is still good enough, and you don't have to cook it for 3 hours if you're making chicken soup. I don't always do that, I just use maybe like chicken broth and then add everything, but I kind of started with the chicken broth step first, making my own chicken broth. So what I'm going to do is I have the pot of bones boiling behind me. After I show you guys the initial steps of the roasting of the bones, then what you're going to see me do is drain out that broth, just because it still has some of the skim that was on it. So I'm going to separate that onion, the garlic, the celery, and the carrots that's already kind of broken down, because I don't want that mushy stuff in there. I'm going to separate the bones as well, leave as much meat from that fell off the bones in my broth. Those bones I'm going to put aside, and I can reuse them for the next time that I'm going to make bone broth. So I let them cool down, put them in a Ziploc bag, put them in the freezer. After I drain out that broth, then we'll get to the next step of adding all the additional vegetables. I'm going to make some dumplings. I'll show you how I make my dumplings. Alright, so let's get into it. Alright, hi guys. I'm back. So I'm going to be making the chicken Caribbean soup. But first, I'm going to roast my chicken back. I also have some turkey neck and some cut up pieces of chicken. I'm going to roast those for about 30 minutes at 400. I added some salt and pepper and garlic just to give it a little flavor. So I'm going to roast that for 30 minutes. Then I'm going to add it to my stock pot with some fresh water, some garlic, some onions, some celery, some carrots. What else will I add? And I'm just going to let that boil down for 3 to 4 hours. The first hour, I'm going to skim off any of that yucky stuff every 15 minutes. And then I'll do it about every hour for the next 2 hours. So even though I'm making a bone broth, I'm not going to cook it for as long as I would usually do bone broth. Usually I do bone broth in my crock pot just so I throw everything in and I don't have to worry about it. But I don't have time to do that today. So I'm going to try to cook my bones down as long as I can. Since I'm using chicken back, it shouldn't take that long to cook down the bones. What you want to do is, when you're able to kind of smush the bones and they break apart, then you know that all of those minerals have gone into the actual broth. So once that happens, then I will take all the bones, take the meat and the bones off, and then use that broth to then cook my soup. So I'll come back later. Okay guys, we're back. I'm going to take out our roasted chicken backs. I roasted those for 30 minutes on 400. So now I have about 20 cups of water boiling. You want your water to get hot before you add everything. That way it's not slowing down the process of cooking. So we're going to add our chicken back to the water. I also have some turkey necks and some other chicken pieces, because what we're going to be doing is making a chicken broth, and then moving forward I'm going to make a Caribbean chicken soup. So what I'm going to add to the chicken broth, because this is a quick alternative to bone broth, but I'm going to try to cook down these bones as long as I can, 2 to 3 hours, where usually I would cook it in a crock pot for at least 19 hours, start in the morning and have it run until the next day. So I have some celery, and I picked this fresh from the Tower Garden. I have some chives that came off of the tower as well. I have 1 carrot that's cut in half. And if you don't want your broth to have a deep color, then exclude the carrots, because it is going to give your broth a more deep color. Then I have 2 small onions, because the onions are really small. So I have 2 onions. I have about 7 cloves of garlic, and I smushed them down to let that flavor out. And this is something that I like to add. You don't have to add it, but it gives it that good umami taste. You know, that tongue smacking taste that really makes bone broth really good. So if you ever cook with mushrooms and you usually get rid of the stem, what I do is I just toss them in a Ziploc bag and throw them in the freezer for whenever I'm making my bone broth. So I have some. I'm going to add those as well. I have 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. And this is very important when you're making bone broth, because without this is what helps draw those minerals out of the bones. So here's our roasted chicken back. I have 4 pieces of the chicken back, and I seasoned it with salt and pepper and some garlic. That's the 3rd piece. Here's the 4th piece. And then you don't have to, but since I had it, because I wanted some chicken necks, but I tried to do it on Instacart and they didn't have any. So luckily I had some turkey necks in the freezer, so I'm going to add those. The more bone pieces that I can have, the better. And I want as much meat as I can for later on for my for the soup. And again, some extra pieces of chicken that I had. I'm going to leave this piece of chicken out just because it doesn't have any bone in it. So I'll save that for later on when it's time to start on the soup. Alright. I'm not going to add any salt right now because I just want to focus on getting those minerals out the bones. So again, we have chives, I have some celery, I have carrots, onion, garlic. I threw in some mushroom stems, and we have our bones and 2 tablespoons of apple cider. So I'm going to let that boil for a good 20 minutes. Well, I'm going to turn it down to about a 4, because this eye is my quick boil eye. So every 15 minutes I'm going to come and check and try to skim, you know, the little nasty stuff that you see come up around the top, which I cleaned my chicken really well already. I cleaned it with vinegar. So, but I'm just going to skim that off for the first hour. Then I'm going to turn it down to a little bit lower and check on it about every hour to see if I need to add more water or skim more of that yucky stuff off the top. Alright, so we'll come back later. Hey guys, so it's been cooking for about an hour and a half. I just added about 4 more cups of water. I'm going to add a piece of ginger because I love that little spice kick in my broth. The bones are starting to break down a little bit, but it's not able to really push through. So we're going to add a little bit of kosher salt, just a little bit, because the real flavor is going to come when we add our stuff, when we do the soup a little bit later. I'm going to add a little bit. That's about a teaspoon. Just a little bit, because when we're cooking the soup, we want to build layers of flavor. Alright, so I'm going to let it cook for another hour. So we'll come back. Hi guys. So our chicken bones, it has been cooking for about 3 hours. So I've added water a few times, but what we're going to do now is drain this out. You don't have to do this step. I choose to do this step. I want my broth to be as clear as possible. So I'm going to drain out the carrots, the celery, the onions, the garlic, those chives. I'm going to separate the bones from the broth, leave as much meat in the broth as possible. I will be able to let those bones cool, and I can store them in the freezer for the next time. So you can use your bones multiple times and still get those nutrients from it. So I'm going to bring you guys over here to the sink. I have another pot. This is a 8-quart pot. I have my strainer, and I'm just going to separate that. So let me put you down a little bit. And if you want your broth to be really clear, you can even add a cheesecloth in there. I do that when I'm making like bone broth usually, but since we're already going to add more stuff in here, chicken soup, I'm not even going to bother with that stuff. See all of that, and it's a lot of pieces of meat, so I'm gonna let that cool down a little bit, and then I'm gonna go through that and add those pieces of meat and some of the bone pieces, because like my husband, he loves bones. So I have to add some more water to this broth, but we have a lot of good meaty pieces in there. So I'm going to put that there, let that cool down. So this is our quick 3-hour bone broth. I'm going to take that back over to the stove. And I'm going to add maybe 4 to 6 more cups of water. Probably going to just start with 4 cups of water. And I'm going to start having that heat up again. And then what we're going to do is make the dumplings. And I'm going to show you the other things that I already prepped, because I like to get things done ahead of time, especially with these kids. Right now my daughter is napping, so that's why I'm able to chat with you guys right now. So let me grab those. Okay, let me put you down here so you can see. So I'm going to show you what we have, and then we're going to start on the dumplings. Because we're going to throw the dumpling in first. So what we have here is I already have some corn cut up, some carrots, and yesterday I harvested some Swiss chard and kale, so we're going to throw. And like I told you guys last time, I like to add as much veggies as I can to my dishes. So we have that. I'm going to put that to the side, and of course that won't take that long to cook. I already had some pumpkin cut up. I had it sitting in some water, because like your starchy vegetables, if you let them just kind of like sit out in the air, they start to turn colors. And the same thing here. We have our white yam, and I have it sitting in cold water. I even added some ice cubes, and it's been sitting in the refrigerator, so you see it still has that white color. Now, even when I peel my yams, I make sure to peel it under the faucet, and I have the water running cold, so that way it doesn't start to brown up. And if you know that you're not going to cook with it right away, then you want to have it sitting in a bowl of cold water, the same way you would do potatoes. So I'm not going to drain that yet because I don't want that to turn brown. This will go in last because this doesn't take that long to cook. And the last thing you want, which I've done it before, I put it in and forgot about it, and it got really mushy and separated all over the place. So you see we have our white yam, we have our pumpkin, we have some Swiss chard and kale carrots, we have corn. I'm going to make dumpling. Going to show you the seasonings that I'm going to use. Have some bay leaves, some allspice. You can use any chicken seasoning, but this is the one that I have. I get it from Aldi's, so I'm going to probably use a tablespoon to tablespoon and a half of this. And it ain't Caribbean chicken soup without the Grace cock soup, or you can use the pumpkin one, but today we're going to use the cock soup. You add this the last 5 minutes. It has like little pasta in it and seasoning, and I usually add that the last 5 minutes right before serving. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to make these dumplings. Then we're going to throw those dumplings in because they take longer to cook. Let them cook for maybe like 10 minutes, and then that's when we'll throw all the other things in and let it cook for another 15 to 20 minutes, and it'll be done because the chicken's already cooked. And once we just throw that back in there, we can eat some soup, y'all. All right, I'm gonna move this stuff over here for now. I'm gonna push this stuff back to make our dumplings. I hope that's enough light. We'll bring you closer. I'm not really gonna measure out the flour. I'm just gonna pour it in our bowl. Just enough to give me like 10 to 15 spinners. I think that's enough. That's probably like 2 cups of flour, just about. You want to add some salt, okay? You don't want no bland dumplings. And I'm going to add a little bit of cornmeal. I'm not going to measure, but it'll probably be like 1/4 cup, okay? So I'm just mix that around. Then I'm going to slowly drizzle in some water. And as the water is drizzling in, I'm kind of mixing it around. Turn that off a little bit, mix it around, see? Now, I am not a pro at making dumplings. I'm not going to pretend that I am. My husband makes really good dumplings, but I do what I do, okay? They still be edible. Some days my dumplings come out banging, and some days they just a little bit soft. But hopefully for y'all, we can get them pretty. See, like even my husband doing, I didn't see all this difficulty right here. Ooh, see, I may have put too much water in there. And if I did, then I'm gonna have to add some more flour. Come back here. Listen, I'm not a cameraman, okay? I don't got no production team, so y'all make do with what we got here. Kneading it. I think this may be good, y'all. I feel hopeful. I feel hopeful. Yeah, I feel hopeful. I think we got this. Roll that over some more. Let's see. That part still full. Alright. So you can either roll them into a ball. Let's see. And kind of smush them like that. But what I'm going to do spinners today. I'm going to make those a little bit smaller. Just because I'm already going to have a bunch of chunky stuff going on. Alright? So, just going to put a napkin right there. Put my spinners on there. And then we'll toss them in the water. Let me get a paper plate. Let's do it like that. Paper plate. Okay? Alright, so I'm going to roll these out and then I'll come back when I put them in the water. Alright guys, we're back. So I did some things while I was gone. What I did was I rolled out the dumplings and I still have some left. I made more than I needed. So those are the spinners. And if you look right here, that has really boiled down. And I realized something that since I use chicken bags, I think we really got some good nutrients from those bones, the bone marrow, because I already put the leftover bones. But if you see, because I used the chicken bag, so it's smaller pieces, and if I smush it, it's kind of smushing and breaking apart, if you see. So, and that's what you want to see. You want to be able to smush the bones. Now, if I was using beef bones, no matter how long I cooked those beef bones, they were not going to smush. But since I was using chicken bones, and especially the chicken back, I feel like 3 hours, that was sufficient. So, what I also did was I already separated all my chicken. So I have the chicken pieces. I left the turkey neck still with the bone on. That's something that my husband and that he would like to be able to chew on. So we're not going to add the chicken yet. What I'm going to do is add some more water, because this is probably about 4 cups of that chicken, that bone broth right there. So I'm going to add, let me turn this so you can hear me. This is 2 cups. Gonna add like 4 more cups of water, because we need enough water for the dumplings to start boiling. But before I add the dumplings in, what I'm gonna do is gonna add some of that chicken bouillon in there. I want to try to at least get our flavor right, because once I add my veggies, I don't want to have to do a lot of mixing around, and I don't want to end up breaking up my veggies trying to stir everything. So I would rather have that flavor at least 80% on point. That way, that last 5 minutes when I add the cock soup, that would finish off that flavor. Okay? So this right here is a tablespoon. I had to move eyes just because it was hard for me to set that tripod over there. So, and I wanted you guys to be able to see. So that's 1 tablespoon. I'm going to do 2. And if I taste it and I feel like it's too salty, then I can just add more water. But I think that'll still be fine, because that's a lot of water already. That's at least 10 cups of water right there. Get a spoon. That's good. But where is it? I'm gonna add a little bit more, because I know I'm gonna end up adding more water. I feel like that was good, so I'm just gonna do 1 more tablespoon. So 3 tablespoons. Now, if you can't consume a lot of sodium, then don't do that. Let's see what it says. Ooh, child, that's a lot of soda. But I think we good. Alright. Let me get a different spoon. We're on double dip over here, okay? I'm not the only one that gotta eat this, so let's see. I didn't really taste like it did any difference, but we're gonna leave that for now, because I'd rather add flavor later on than it to be too much, okay? So let's add our spinners to our broth. And I'm gonna let these cook for like a good 10 minutes before I add everything else. Before I add the corn, our carrots, and I wonder if I should, I wonder if I should add the pumpkin with this. No, I cut the pumpkin pretty small, so I'll hold off on the pumpkin. So yeah, we're gonna cook this for 10 minutes. Then we'll add everything else and let that cook for another 10 to 20 minutes. And then we'll add the cock soup the last 5 minutes. That was a good amount of spinners right there. And I'm just going to give it a little stir just to make sure that nothing's sticking to the bottom. Just to lift them up. Okay. What I'm going to add is Scotch bonnet. I'm just going to throw that in there for now. Okay. Add my pimento. I'm going to do about three pimento seeds. Bay leaf. Do 2 bay leaves. Okay. I usually would add garlic, but we already had a bunch of garlic from when we first was cooking the bone broth. I'm going to go outside and cut some scallion, and we'll add that in. We won't add it right now. We'll add it when we add the rest of our vegetables, okay? We'll be back. Alright guys, we're back. You can see our dumpling is bubbling up. Before we added the dumpling, we had added some chicken powder. I added 3 tablespoons. Guys, calm down. Calm down. You don't have to worry about, well, is that too much salt? No. Because the directions are 1 teaspoon to a cup of water. Remember, we already had our chicken, the bone broth that was about at least 4 cups of water. I added another 6 cups of water. What is it? 1 teaspoon, 3.3 teaspoons to 1 tablespoon. So we're good. We're actually under, okay? So just for y'all that was like, oh my gosh, she's trying to give us a heart attack. Okay, you don't have to season yours like that, okay? So since I already added the dumpling, I'm gonna add the pumpkin, okay? We want to put that in slowly. I don't want stuff popping all over me. Alright, stir that around. What's this? That's our yam. Gonna throw that corn in there, okay? Let me move that out the way. Okay. And our greens. That's chard and kale. And even with like a good 20 minutes of those cooking, they'll still have a good texture to it. We don't want to boil those down too much because we still want to get all those good nutrients from that, okay? All our chicken, okay? Chicken in our neck bone. Rinse my hand off. Alright, let me mix that around a little bit. And then we're going to add that white yam. And I have to watch that closely because I don't want that to get really mushy. I love the texture of the yam. So you see we're getting full up in here. Right now the broth is still clear. Once we add that cock soup, that's what's going to thicken it up a little bit. And then whatever comes off of our yam. So we have our yam that's been sitting in cold water to prevent it from turning brown. Push that down. Because when it's exposed to air, when it gets discolored. And I'm making a huge pot because I'm going to take some to my favorite neighbor. One of my favorite neighbors I have. Two really great neighbors. So, and I hope she and her family enjoys it. Alright, so we're going to let this cook for like 15 minutes. And then we're going to add our cock soup. Let that cook another 5 to 10 minutes. Alright? We shall be back. Alright guys, I'm back. Woo, that's bubbling. Give this a stir, make sure nothing is sticking. Yeah, the yams, they cook really fast. Oh, this looks so good. Let me bring you guys closer. Alright, you see the broth is still light. So, almost forgot to. I'm going to add some thyme. I'm going to add I went outside and grabbed some green onions. So what we're going to do is we're going to add this cock soup. That's going to thicken it up a little bit and add some noodles. You don't have to because this already has some really great flavor right now. But, let me fix this. Ay, ay, ay. Yeah, I cannot get this. You know what? I didn't want to do this side because I know I feel like it's darker. My daughter over there. Don't mind her slurping on her popsicle. She woke up from a nap. So let's add our cock soup. And you can do the cock soup or you can do the pumpkin. I'll show you the pumpkin. But we're going to, this is the other option. But since I already have some pumpkin, we're just going to do this. And I'll show you up close. There's like noodles in there. So if you don't really care if you have no noodles and you feel like you already have the season, instead of that you can add like some sazon. So I'm going to stir that around. Ooh, pop me a little bit. I'm going to add our green onions. I'm going to add like spring of thyme. 2 springs of thyme. I could have added that sooner, but I forgot. I'm going to make sure I stir this a little bit because since those noodles, don't want them sticking. And we added that scotch bonnet pepper. I tasted it again. It didn't have that much spice. I don't want to add too much spice because I don't know if, since I'm going to share out some for my neighbors, I don't want it to be too spicy, and if they can't handle heat, I can always add some scotch bonnet pepper sauce to my bowl. Alright, let's put that over there. I'm going to turn this down to medium temp, put the lid back on, and let me put a timer on. I'm going to let it cook for another, I'm going to put 7 minutes because I already noticed that the yam was softening up, and I wanted to still have some texture to it. So we're gonna do 7 minutes on medium, and then it will be done, and then I'll share out a bowl for you. All right, we'll be back. Okay, our soup is done. Woo. Let's turn the timer off. Bring it closer. You want some soup, Mama? No, not yet? Okay. Alright. I'm gonna spoon this out and show you what we're working with. Because I'm hungry. I've been waiting for this. We got some yam. I see some pumpkin and dumpling in there. Bring this closer. Ooh, watch out, oh, that's hot. You don't want to burn yourself, okay?
Okay. Hey, cheese.
Corn.
Corn.
Yeah.
I love corn.
You love corn?
Yeah.
Oh, this one has a lot of meat, so I'm going to put that in there. Oh, they can't see you. I'll turn it so they can
You see me. You
put
see
another dumpling.
You're not.
Yeah, let me get some more greens. All right. Yum. Then what we're going to add. You want some? I'm going to take it over here and I'm going to bring you guys over this way. Here we go. Bring you down. I love eating these crackers. The water crackers.
I want water crackers.
Have a few of those. You want one?
Yeah.
Okay. Here you go, Mama. You gonna say you're welcome?
I got you.
You say thank you? You want two?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright. There we have it. Our Caribbean chicken soup. I hope that you guys learned something from this video. If you try it out, let me know. And again, thanks for joining me while I made dinner this Saturday. So for our Caribbean chicken soup, we started out with quick bone broth. And we came up with this beauty. Alright, I'm going to taste it. Alright, thanks for joining the Hope Garden.